What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Huddle, your weekly playbook helping you gain forward progress in the field of flooring. Simply put, we're here to help you win. For our new viewers, welcome to the team. As always, I got Mr. Daniel and Jose Gonzalez, and we already got comments. All right.
Yeah.
From Preferred Flooring in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today's a very special episode. Today's topic is an open mic with CFI. What's going on? Essentially, we have the Executive Advisory Board of CFI with us today. We got Rod, Leslie, and Rollin and Philip. And our goal today is to take your questions, present them to the panel, and have a discussion. So we, as always, highly encourage participation. I also want to say if you're catching us on YouTube, Facebook, any of the platforms, give us a like, subscribe, give us some thumbs up, some thumbs down, whatever you feel like is necessary. We just want you to interact with us. So that being said, welcome everybody. Hope today's going well. How's everyone doing? Good. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here, specifically the advisory board executive team. I'd like to go around, maybe let the audience know a little bit about you. How'd you get in flooring? How'd you get involved with CFI? And what are you doing now in flooring? So from my screen, I think it's set up the same way
it should
everywhere. We'll start with Rollin at the top, and we'll just make a big circle. So Rollin, I'm sorry. Let's start with Rod. Rod.
I was gonna say.
On my screen, I'm the last.
That's the first joke out of the way.
All right, good enough.
Here,
all
I'll
right.
Be
so
last.
Let's see. I've been in the industry since 1978, so quite a number of years. Got involved while I was still going to college as an installer. Been in it ever since. Started with CFI in '95, which is actually went to their convention the second year that the organization was in existence. Got certified at convention, which was something we don't do anymore, but was pretty interesting. A couple of days prior to certification, you'd come into town and go through the certification, and then hung around and got to go to the convention, which was pretty interesting. And so to date, I've missed one convention since. So I've been to 29 of the 30. So I've done pretty well.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm vice president of operations for CDI Floors here in Kentucky.
All right. Leslie?
So I've been in the industry for 27 years, almost 28, but I came in kind of a roundabout way. I accepted a graphic design position here at QEP Roberts, did graphic design and art, packaging, all that stuff for many, many years. It wasn't until, we've always been part of CFI, I think, almost always been part of CFI as a corporation. About 5 years ago, my job changed a little bit, and it became very important to us to make sure that we were being part of the solution of bringing that next generation in and supporting the installers and being the voice of the installers. So the more I did that, the more I got involved with CFI because it's an amazing group and that's what they do. And then I was asked to be part of the advisory board. And so between my travels, talking to installers and representing the installers, trying to be the voice, I've become very, very familiar with CFI and love it. It's family.
Awesome. Philip, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. So I was born into the industry. My dad installed for CFI. My brother, Al, he drove us 2 hours to a chapter at Danny Sherman's shop and 2 hours back. That one chapter meeting sold me, and currently I'm the Eastern representative for Crane Cutter Company.
Nice. Mr. Rowland.
All right. Well, it all depends on who you talk to, Daniel or you guys. And I've been doing it 150 years, but in reality, I
least.
started in 1972. At least, yeah. I started in 1972. I've been doing it. This is 53rd year. I have Thompson's Flooring Installation and Consultant Service. So, as the name is, I do each one of those things. I do some, of course, the flooring store business, but also do some consultant inspections and training. So that's what I do. I got involved with CFI in actually 2002. The first few times they went through, I didn't see any need for it. I was one of those installers that I've been doing it 30 years. Why do I need it to get certified? But then I realized it was my daughter actually. She said, "Dad," she said, "why not? You don't have a flooring college, you know. You always want to improve yourself, and you always want to show what you can do. Go do it." And with the prodding of Junior Harris and David Hunt, I said okay, and got certified, and then I liked the family feel of it, and I liked what it was looking it could do, and here I am.
Awesome. Well, glad you guys all are here with us today. We're going to get kicked off with the topic. We'll get to some questions as they come up. But the topic is what's going on, So who wants to just kind of kick it off? Right now, CFI is doing something. It's going to continue. So tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Well, I guess I'll take that. Yeah, unless you really want to.
I think can we just start at this question right here that I'm going to put up? What is CFI? Let's start
That's
there. Let's start
probably
with the
not bad.
basics.
I
What
saw
is
that
CFI?
question.
All right. Well, go ahead, Roland.
No, you run with it. You
All
don't
right,
want to get me started talking, do you?
All right. So CFI, Certified Floor Covering Installers Association, which was founded back in 1993. Okay. It was brought about to be able to organize the flooring industry at a point where there really wasn't much structure. There was a lot of people out there that were good at their craft but weren't getting much recognition. So a group of gentlemen got together and decided that a certification would help identify those that knew what they were doing versus those that were just out there doing work. And so that was the original purpose behind CFI, was to identify the professionals in the industry.
And CFI started, can you give just a little bit of background on how CFI started and maybe what the maturity of it or whatever? Most places start at some point and, grow into what they are today.
Yeah, it started in the Midwest. I think many people that are familiar with CFI certainly know the Walkers, Jim and Jane, and they were very instrumental in getting the organization off the ground. But there was a much larger group than that.
Most places start.
I'm getting a little feedback, but anyhow, they got together at a couple different meetings to discuss their options and what they were trying to accomplish, and they finally landed on this certification program. And it started out with carpet only, and over time it's evolved into the other floor finishes as well. So currently we offer training in all 4 floor finishes and certification in 3 of the 4.
And that would be carpet, resilient, or LVP, hardwood, and tile. Well,
ceramic, we've recently formed a joint venture with CTF Group, Ceramic Tile Education Foundation. And for many years, we had separate but very similar programs. So I'll give Dave Garden some kudos there. Dave was instrumental in helping get that off the ground, and we now have a 5-week education program that is co-branded by CTEF and CFI to educate entry-level ceramic installers. And then the career path, of course, is then to push them towards getting their CTI certification.
Awesome.
And
All right.
CFI held the first CTI at a CFI location last year. So we're partnering with them as they're the ceramic tile people, and we see where that's important for us to realize that and partner up with that.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, let's get to the topic. That was a great intro, because actually I think understanding what CFI is for some people who may not know is important. I'll set the question up with it's clear that there has been a separation of duty with the executive vice president, I believe was the term,
The title.
or the title. So what's going on now? How's CFI approaching the future, and how long does that outlook look like?
Well, CFI has decided not to rehire that position temporarily. We do assume at some point in the future we will be hiring another person to fill that role. The difference is in what that role will be in the future. Okay, we're still sorting this out, but many years ago, before WFCA purchased CFI, CFI was ran by its advisory board of directors at that time. We had an education director. Isn't that the term we used back then, Roland? We didn't call him an executive director, did we? I'm trying to remember.
No, we had. He was the educational director, correct? You had John Nama there for a while, and that's that position.
And so the board was still responsible for kind of creating strategic strategy for the group each year, and then monitoring our progress and helping the staff make decisions in terms of what opportunities we should pursue and which ones we should leave alone. And there are times that not every opportunity is a good one. And so what we're doing now as an advisory board is kind of taking back some of that responsibility and now getting a little bit more heavily involved in the interim until we decide that hiring a new person for the role Ralph just left. And then, like I said, we expect it to be structured a little bit different than it has been in the most recent past.
Yeah, and that leads to one of the questions we got in an email, right? Because it says, CFI has had several leadership changes in recent years. How has that affected stability, direction, and long-term planning with the organization?
I'll take that on, Rod. One thing we've always had, to add to what Rod said, even though we've had the executive board and now we have the advisory board, CFI's always had committees that any member can put on and ask to be on, either a carpet committee, LVP committee, hardwood committee, and that's done not by board members, advisory board members, and that's done by all members. So you can get on, you can help with the curriculum, you can help put that stuff together and everything else. So that's always been there, it's still there. And actually we beg for people who have the knowledge and that to come on and help with that. So we want people there. So that answers that part of that question that Rod was talking about, what CFI's doing. Then the other is, as far as the, we haven't had as many as what you think. I'll just be straightforward with this. When Robert decided to move on and move on to do what he's doing, we looked for somebody. They hired somebody, sort of a rush to get somebody in that position, feeling that they needed to have that position filled. It took one convention for all the members, and we're talking about the members. We're not talking about the board members. We're talking about all the members. It took one convention, which is only a few months into his reign, to realize that he wasn't a fit. All right. So he moved on. And Steve Abernathy, at that time, we didn't have anybody. We didn't go through it. Steve Abernathy came in with WFCA, and he took over for about 2 years that spot, knowing when he came on, he was getting close to retirement and was going to step down. So we knew that for 2 years, that in a certain amount of his time was going to be over. And during that 2 years, we flourished. We grew. He let the board that you're looking at now, but there's some other people. We have new ones on since in the last year. But he let us, and he listened to us. And when we asked him stuff, wanted to put stuff on, he was more than willing to stand there and support us and be there for us. But he retired. So they felt they needed to have another executive director. And that's when Ralph came on. And I think Ralph would still be there today, but they brought him on part-time. I don't think a lot of people realize that he didn't come on full-time. He came on part-time. And he had his other business that he was working with, but he was standing in the back. Well, things changed. And, and he made the decision to care for his family, take care of his family, that he could do what he could do. And his business that he had purchased, which most of everybody's seen that he advertises, he's working to be able to support his family in that way. So I don't think we really have had the drastic change and the drastic fall apart, because the core people have always been there. Our staff, John McHale and Jen Zern, and that are there. They're staple people in our organization. The board is still there. That's ready to step up. It has been stepping up for the last 2 years when Steve was there. So I don't think it's as bad as what people want to make it look like and feel. We've flourished in the last 2 years. We've had more certifications. We've had more people coming back. We've had vendors come back. I mean, our conventions have rose with people and vendors and coming back. So I think we're in a good place.
Can I just add to that just real fast?
Yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
So just from, I work at a corporate company, and we've had a lot of vice presidents of sales. It doesn't mean that we as a company are weak or weaker or stronger or whatever. Like, sometimes you go through personnel, and it doesn't mean that the entire structure, the entire foundation changes. So I think that's kind of what Roland was saying as well, that we're still very firm. Our foundation is still there, and we're going to grow on that. We're going to build.
Okay. There is a clarification over here. Someone said that before it was, in fact, executive director. It wasn't like director of education like you guys were saying. So I don't know. I've not been in it that long.
And it could have been. It could have been. We haven't had one of those for since the 2000 and probably 10. We haven't had that position. Jim Walker was always the CEO, and we only had 2 of those in the time I remember. So as being called the executive director, it could have very well been.
Okay, and we got Dan Churchill on here right now with his conversation starters. We all know this.
Let's just start with my question. Just go to that part where it's read from there, Daniel.
Okay, my question is, who is the president? Who is the director of education? Like, so I guess we're looking at titles, but that title of executive vice president is no longer there, right?
Well, let me clarify something, which is probably going to confuse people, but it probably needs to be said nonetheless. Okay. WFCA, when they hire people to run a specific organization, that title is associated with WFCA. They are a vice president of WFCA. So that's where that vice president comes in. Okay? Now, CFI is a subsidiary of WFCA. Okay? So you don't necessarily have a president of CFI. Okay?
I think some of that confusion comes in the corporate world, and maybe we can speak to this a little bit. In the corporate world, when a Coca-Cola, for example, buys, or a Pepsi buys another company, there's typically the CEO of the entire
Umbrella.
overarching structure, and then presidents of each entity that answer directly to the CEO and thus the board. So in that way, I think is where some of the questions might come up, that who is the president, who's leading the charge. And this is just something I'm going to add, is that the wanting to have someone in charge, I was just going to go back to what Leslie said earlier, that very frontlining person, so whoever is like in charge of the organization, are often the face, right? They're out there. What you don't see is maybe some of the positive hirings and other stuff that happens in an organization, where the executive vice president or executive director, whatever the title is, if that position gets vacated in one way or another, that's so much more on the front lines, and people want to know about it. So to tie this back to the regular business world, if the CEO of Pepsi gets let go or quits tomorrow, that's going to be on ABC News. So it's because of that frontline, kind of leadership position, I think, is where a lot of the people are questioning what's going on.
Well, Paul, what we have now as it stands, and is that Rod is the chair of the advisory board. He's also the chair of the advisory board, also sits on the board of directors of WFCA. So when WFCA has meetings, like they just had one in Phoenix, Rod is there representing CFI to the board of directors of WFCA. So if you want to look at who's, I guess, would be in charge, and he's humble, so he's not going to say, "Hey, look at me." He might, I don't know. Anyway, he hey, you are. Anyway, but he is in that position, and that's why we have the executive board, the advisory board, is so there is some kind of leadership there.
Right.
Well,
So
that
a lot of people
actually-
I think a lot of people are looking for one person, but the fact of the matter is that it's many people that get together and make decisions and take that to the WFCA.
Well, and that's what happens in
Correct.
the corporate world.
But Rod
A
is the
board
one
of
that
directors usually makes the decisions for the group. It's rarely one individual. And, we have had times in our past where most of the power within the organization rested with one or two people. I think that's a mistake. Okay. I think there are so many gifted and passionate people in our organization that are willing to step up and participate in leadership, that we should be taking full advantage of that. So the fact that we don't, quote, have a president currently shouldn't alarm anybody. It really doesn't speak to a weakness. Rather, it speaks to the strength of this organization, that we're not going to miss a beat. I know time will prove whether or not I'm accurate in making that statement, but I can tell you that at least these four people that are sitting in front of you now are committed to making things the very best we can for CFI.
Yes.
Well, it's gonna just jump in real quick. So there, one of the questions is that I'm gonna pop it back up here. Denise said, the leader that Daniel just kind of
Touched on.
referred to. One of the questions: how long do you think CFI can operate by committee? Is it sustainable not to have a this says director, a leader who is and then who is ultimately responsible for making tough decisions in this current structure. So that maybe extrapolates the whole question, like who's our leader? They really want to know is this a sustainable method? And then who is ultimately in charge of making tough decisions?
Can I jump in real fast?
Yeah.
Because I've heard so much chatter out there about for the installer, by the installer. So to me, this is perfect scenario. We are the members. You're looking at your advisory board. We're all members. We are your voice. So for us to be able to take those voices and push them up through ROD and into WFCA, I don't know why that wouldn't be the perfect scenario. Now, if we are not being utilized or if we're not talking and saying the things that need to be said, then you need to change the advisory board. But I highly doubt that that's happening because we are all very aware of what our members are saying and how they're feeling. So,
Yeah,
I have a question about that too. If we're talking about a progression that goes up the ladder like that, what is the ultimate purpose of CFI viewed through the eyes of the WFCA?
So what is the purpose of your question is what is the purpose of CFI?
What is CFI
Why does
truly being utilized for, right? If it's got to trickle up and we as members and as a group have to answer to them, because I understand they pretty much own the CFI brand, right? How much of what we're doing is going to hold weight at that table? And then we trickle the information up. We say, hey, this is where we're at, what we need, what we want. How much of that is being implemented back down? They have to see it as value at some point, right?
Let me,
Rod, you need to answer that because he was at the big meeting.
well, let me see if I can't form that properly. Okay. One, it doesn't just trickle up. I mean, at any point in time, if I want to get a member of the board on the phone, I pick up the phone call. They're very receptive. Okay. I will tell you that having been the CFI representative with WFCA for the last 2 years, that we have a very strong support amongst the WFCA board. And there's always confusion about ownership. And I understand that. I really do. People say, well, WFCA owns you, so they must be telling you what to do. It's never worked that way. And I know it sounds almost foreign to think, well, they're just giving you money and they're letting you do whatever you want. No, that's not necessarily true. We have to submit a budget. We have to explain what we intend to do with the money they give us. But for the most part, as long as we give a responsible position out there, they accept it and we go on down the road together. It's very encouraging for me, the support that we've received, particularly in the last 2 years. Prior to that, I had some doubts too. Okay. And until I sit in that room with them and listen to them talk about how important they thought CFI was to the WFCA overall, I really thought somewhat the same way I'm sure some of our listeners did. Well, that's too good to be true. They're not just giving them money. Well, I will tell you, WFCA does give a lot of money to this industry to support a lot of different aspects. They're the number one funder behind FCEF, Floor Covering Education Foundation. They're out there trying to train young adults on how to get into the industry. I mean, I think that if you guys look around right now, there's a lot of momentum in that direction, and FCF is doing a great job. Kay did a outstanding job over the last 18 months, and since she's taken over leadership, they have really accomplished a great deal. But again, that organization wouldn't exist if it wasn't for WFCA helping with the funding and helping support that with other resources in the same manner that they support CFI. So I know it sounds like, wow, it's too good to be true. Well, there's limits to everything, certainly. If we went out there and blew our budget every year and wasn't showing any progress and wasn't moving closer to balancing our budget, because right now they're picking up a pretty healthy share of the cost, then they might look at us differently. But that's a retailer's organization. They know the value of having quality installers out there working on their behalf every day. And
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense for WFCA to care about installer training and certification and building the installer. I mean, their very main customer relies on them greatly. We've all heard it said about how, a flooring looks pretty in the showroom, but the number one factor, whether it looks good in your house or not, is that installer. So at the end of the day, we all serve the community or the consumer who buys these products and thus buys our labor. One of the questions that came up here that I wanted to touch on is, I'm going to reframe it a little bit, but if you have to explain and they say no or say less money is available, then that means they're running CFI and not the members, like you say. Who measures the progress, CFI or WFCA? So essentially,
let me clarify that real quick, Paul. At least since I've been acquainted with the board, they've not turned down anything we've asked for. So if you were saying, well, geez, we asked them for $1 million and they said, no, you can't have $1 million. Yeah, that would probably be a true statement. They wouldn't give us $1 million unless we could prove to them exactly how we were going to spend it, how it was going to benefit the industry overall. So, yes, I understand. And in the normal mentality, you say, well, whoever's paying the bills it's got to be in charge.
Well, yeah, yes and no, but
a charitable organization works.
But we're also we have to stay within our budget too. They're not just going to keep writing checks. They're going to give us a certain amount of money, and then we have to decide sometimes whether we're doing this program or that program or whatever. But it's they're not saying yes or no. They're saying this is how much you have to spend on whatever you're trying to do, and then we have to decide the right way to spend that money to do what we need.
Yeah, you got a budget.
Thanks for touching on that, because that was one of the questions from an email was how much autonomy does CFI have under WFCA in terms of funding, priorities, and governance? So they just give you a budget and then it's up to CFI to figure everything else out.
Well, we submit a budget.
We have to be good stewards of our money, just like any business, or any home. If you're doing things at home, you have a certain amount of money you have access to, and you got to be good stewards of it and use it wisely. And that's what the CFI Advisory Board and headquarters it tries to do.
And I think that's some people's
go ahead.
I think that some people's misconception is that they look at it as a nonprofit and not a actual business, but the fact of the matter is a nonprofit is a business. So
absolutely.
Some of the biggest organizations on the planet are nonprofits.
And quite honestly, nonprofits have to stick to a budget even tighter because they have to be able to justify
everything that they're spending,
grant money or anything. They have to. They're run tighter than non-profits.
I'm going to rapid fire a little bit here to get caught up on some questions. So I just want to see if we can get a quick, hard answer on who measures the progress of CFI. Who measures, like, if CFI has a initiative, who's measuring the progress? Like who's the accountability person? And I don't think anyone's going to be able to get it like completely away from this. We're so used to having a leader. We have a president of the country. We have presidents of companies. We have a team leader on our crews, all the way down to the installer, right? We have someone there. So we're not going to, I think we're going to continue to get questions about this, but who measures the progress? Who says, hey, we did a great freaking job this year, or we did not? Or is that only measured against the proposed metrics? So maybe you say we're going to grow CFI by membership by 20% this year, and you're only judged by how close you got to that. But, or like, I'm just giving an option, but do you understand?
Yeah, I think there's more critical analysis there than just how did you measure against your goals. But I will say this, that look, what we do at CFI is measured by the members' comments today. If they're not happy with something we're doing, maybe some of it can be confusion, maybe some of it can be poor communication on our part. Some of it may be genuine, hey, they don't think we're doing a very good job in one particular area. And, you know, people don't necessarily always want to believe, but the bottom line is that we want your criticism. And the reason we want your criticism is so that we can then do the right thing by you. If we don't know what's going on in people's heads and what they think this organization should be to them, then we wouldn't represent the membership very well, would we? So we need that feedback. Philip, you haven't said anything, and people don't understand just how super intelligent you are because you sit for so darn quiet all the time.
He's listening.
Well, let me direct this next question straight at you, Philip.
Yeah.
One of the questions, speaking of criticism, is the new logo.
The logo change,
both good and bad. But what is there's two different logos, and they represent who? You say the bullseye is for the installer and always will be. Why two? CFI is for and by installers, and we stand as one. So, Philip, you want to address that one, or
if my internet holds up, I will. So we've had two logos for a long time now. We've had the one behind me, and we've had the squares. So WFCA has just modernized all the logos under their brand to bring all the brands together. But if you're a certified installer, that's still the original logo that's still hanging on. I don't know. Like, we've had the squares for years and nobody questioned it. We went from the squares to the new logo. Now everybody's questioning it. They just modernized it and brought us up under the umbrella with the other guys.
right? And I think Leslie could probably touch on this since she's in marketing more, right? And it's that's all it is. It's a rebrand of something that's already there.
It really is, and I think there was pushback when they went to the square logos, if I remember correctly. But I mean, even at QAP Roberts, we've changed our logos. We've gotten bad feedback. People don't like change. Coca-Cola has changed their logo. Sometimes you just need a refresh. And WFCA went through and did a refresh of all of their affiliates, pulled them all under one umbrella. And it really is a good thing, because at the end of the day, we want to show that we're part of a bigger movement and a bigger presence. It gives us strength. So people saying that now we have two logos, there's confusion. There's always been two logos. Philip said it exactly.
Well, I was going to build on that just a little bit. I mean, logos change and brands change because people change. And so when things change, you modernize things to keep with that change. So that's kind of a normal progression of an organization. On to the next one here. It says a little history. How much support did WFCA give CFI when Jane and Jim were running things? I don't know what that exactly means, other than I don't believe they were even involved at that point. And
Yeah, they were, Paul. Chris Davis was the head of WFCA, and every year he saw that CFI got at least $50,000 from WFCA every year. Sometimes it was a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but at least it was. No, normally it's at least 50,000, sometimes a little bit more. But yes, WFCA has been supporting CFI from almost the beginning.
all right. Well, that answers that. Nice and direct. On to the next one. So does the board vote to make the final decisions that get brought to the WFCA? So when there's something that comes up
Again,
that needs addressed,
there's
does
a
the
lot of
board vote
confusion
on it?
about this. We don't, as long as we stay within our own mission statement, okay? I'm assuming most people understand what a mission statement is, and so it describes what your organization stands for, right? And as long as we stay within the parameters of our mission statement, unless we're going to ask for more money, we don't have to ask permission for anything we do. Now, if we were making poor decisions, that'd be a much different situation, I'm sure. But as long as we're true to what the organization stands for, we don't have to go ask permission to do anything. We just, as Leslie said a minute ago, we balance our resources to be able to choose which is the better opportunity, and then that's the one you pursue. Nobody's actually holding our strings and saying, we want you over here. That's not the way it's working.
Okay.
And like I said, it's an interesting dynamic, and I understand why people are confused by it. But nonetheless, it is how it is working.
Well, truth is there's a staff that does the day-to-day operations
Right.
and has job descriptions that they work within. And I think this might have been, I'm going to embellish a little bit maybe, but it might have been more of a question on big changes. If something big is going to change, does the board vote on it and then take it to WFCA for final approval? Or does CFI, are they able to say, hey, we're going to implement X, Y, and Z, whatever that might be. We're going to implement X, Y, and Z just to let you know, CFI. So is it, hey, or WFCA, is it, hey, WFCA, we're doing this. It's within our budget and everything's good, even if it's a big change? Or does it like, hey, WFCA, can we do this? That seems to be.
Well, let me use this as an example. If we decided tomorrow that we wanted to go ahead and pursue hiring a new individual to take over the executive director role, then that would have to be approved by WFCA's board. Okay. Those are the level of decisions that would have to be taken up the ladder to their board, because again, that person actually gets hired by WFCA to run the CFI division. Now, again, we're looking at a little bit different structure in the future, because honestly, there you go, Dave, put it up for us. There's our mission statement. But we're looking for a lot more transparency and a lot less individual leadership, but more of a group concept where everybody has more of a voice in the decision-making process.
So I'm just going to read the mission statement. It's CFI exists to elevate, promote, and represent the professionalism of flooring installation. And then a couple one clarification is we're saying that the WFCA used to give CFI average of $200,000 a year prior to the acquisition. And
I can't speak to that. I can't say if that
like I said, there was years. It said they were. I know it was at least 50, and like I said, there was times
right,
and
more. That's why it's an average. And then the other one is about what Paul was saying earlier, and we kind of just touched on it, right? You know, and this is directly from, you'll probably know who it's directly from, but he says that it all falls on the person running the association and not the advisory board, because it fell on him when he was the executive director.
the structure was different under his watch than what I'd like to see it be in the future. I will say that. Okay, and we'll leave it at that.
All right, I missed that question. I didn't see it. What was that question?
It wasn't even a question. It was just a statement that it falls on the
Oh,
executive director and
okay.
not the board.
Okay.
And well, for clarification, again, we're part of a large organization. Okay, so when WFCA purchased CFI, just to give you some background, CFI had a board of directors prior to the purchase. After the purchase, the board of directors was dissolved. It transitioned into an advisory capacity. Okay, now once we transitioned that way, we lost some of the ability to influence what was being done day to day within the organization. Most of the power shifted from the board of directors to that executive director position, which literally gave one person a great deal of control over the path and direction of the organization. What we're trying to do is move back closer to where we were prior to that.
Gotcha. I think a fair question that's come up is now that the WFCA has bought two other entities, the NFIC and FCITS, what effect does that have on the CFI advancement?
They each will have their own budget. In other words, they aren't going to, at least, unless things could change. I mean, we'll be realistic. But, right now, as it stands, our budget has not been cut or changed whatsoever. And the budgets will be set for each one of those organizations.
And they have their own structure. NFIC has their own advisory board, and they're all run separately still.
Could they work together with the installers from CFI, with all the other entities in there? This includes the FCEF as well.
FCEF, we don't. That has its own structure. The NFIC, a lot of us same people are on that with that board, committee also.
Well, I was also referring to the installers, trainers being utilized for all the entities. Are the trainers interchangeable?
Well, yeah, because it is part. Yeah, well, they have to be NFI certified, just like if you're a CFI trainer, you can't train over the level that you are. All right. So for somebody to be a trainer for NFIC, they would have to be NFIC certified, which is still part of, of our organization and WFCA, both NFIC and CFI.
Well, I'm going to read a comment, and then can you take one of you two take Kevin's question next? But it says, so CFI isn't ran by the people, it's ran by the WFCA. I think I'm going to add 2 cents here. I just want to recap what has already been said. I'm not giving an opinion, but what you've already said is CFI is given or submits its budget to the WFCA for what it needs and its goals and curriculum or whatever the goals are for the year. And once that's approved, then CFI operates somewhat autonomously from the WFCA as long as they are working within those things. So while this is typical, I just want to say, of other companies too, like that, having we're getting ready to start a maintenance division at my company, for example. My maintenance head of maintenance is going to have to submit to me the goals and initiatives for the year and we will give them a budget, but it's his job to run it profitably and make it work, and has autonomy for that to happen. And so I wanted to recap that and then just add a quick statement. But
Well,
go ahead and
and
let you guys
Elena, well,
kind of
Elena's
address that.
comment actually ties into this. So she says the confusion comes because when we ask the office, the answer is we have to check with the WFCA. So I think that's like, so where is that line at where you're autonomous versus we have to ask?
The only thing that
Well, and that was the case. This is all new. It was the case that's when you called in there. They say, well, let's check with WSCA.
no,
And they
hold on a
consider.
minute, Roland. You're muddying the water here. That's really not the case.
Okay.
So let's make sure.
Okay.
Let's make sure we're clear. Right now, and I know what Elena's referring to because this year, for the first time, WFCA has agreed to help with marketing. And they actually put a group together a professional group together to help promote marketing for all their brands under the WFCA. So it's a centralized approach. Okay. So Frida Staton is running that up, who's one of the VPs at WFCA. All right. That hasn't even been launched yet. So when Elena calls in and says, hey, can I market this? And they said, I got to go back to WFCA because we have a marketing agreement with another association. I need clarification. That's specifically what Elena, I believe, is referring to. And if it's not, please, Elena, get back
It's
on it.
more about staying in line with some of the bylaws and the rules that have been set forth.
Say that again, Jose.
So it's more or less about staying within the bylaws, the guidelines of the contract between WFCA and CFI.
Correct.
Yeah, as long as we operate within that range, we really don't have a lot of oversight.
So Kevin says, what does CFI have planned for the near future to bring value to the membership and draw in new members as well as trainers?
Philip, you want to take one?
I know we've been working on it behind the scenes, and we've been talking about a lot of stuff going forward about getting more value to the members. It's in the books. I know it's being discussed at our advisory board meetings, and there are some stuff we are working on.
Anybody want to expand on any specific thought processes maybe that the board's considering or any of that?
So obviously our goals are to bring more value, right? We always want to have value for the members, and it takes a lot of work. It's not just an easy snap of the fingers. Last year, our goal was to start up the chapters again. Roland did a great job of doing that. We're up to what, 12, 13 chapters?
12 chapters
so,
right now.
So we want to bring value to the chapters as well, and get their programs up and running, and be able to bring in people that are talking and presenting, and bringing them, people that show up at the chapter meetings, get something special. And we're looking at, convention, bringing more value even to convention, and bringing more vendors to convention. We know that one of the things that is really important to us is to come back to more value for the members. It's not just enough to be able to say, you can market it, you can do whatever you want with it. It's up to you to market yourself. We have to teach people how to market that. We have to give classes on how to network and how to be able to push forward and utilize the network. So it's not just about material things. It's about being able to connect better with the members and making sure that they know how to connect with each other.
And it sounds like leveraging their certifications and trainings and teaching them how to do that in the marketplace to gain more business, and leveraging their great new training. Is that
Yeah. Like we need to be better at, after people are certified, following up to show them what to do with it after that, or even just presenting it and to people that aren't certified, to explain why they need to be certified.
Jonathan Varden says WFCA has always helped with marketing. We had TK Fusion, a professional marketing company through the WFCA. Frida has always helped with marketing since 2015.
And I don't think that he, like when Rod was talking about it, he said that it's just a brand new thing with the marketing, right? It's just that, I mean, even
It's a
before a
bigger
few years
focus.
ago, it was like, no, you can't use this because we have to go through marketing. It's always been like that. It's just probably even more strict now.
Well, here's what's going on is that TK Fusion has always been responsible for producing any press releases we send out. Okay, that all gets ran through them, and they write them up. And then some of the global stuff that they do in terms of advertising has been done through TK Fusion. A lot of stuff that we do leading up to TICE each year. So yes, they've always had some involvement. Guys, this year, for the first time ever, they actually put together a strategic plan for marketing. That's quite a different focus.
Yeah, I think some of the point is that some of the stuff that people are seeing have changes, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't already there. Like Philip said, there's always been two logos. There's always been help with marketing. So some of this stuff seems like it's coming out to maybe just coming off of people's chest or coming out in the forefront. But is the advisory board planning to continue promoting training for Hispanic people? So Spanish speaking, supporting the Hispanic community, what kind of efforts or planning specifically to promote training for the Hispanic community?
So I think that, of course, it's a huge industry out there. It's a huge part of our membership, and it's really important to do. I think that where we really need to push forward isn't just the training, but the marketing of it as well. So again, that's where WFCA can help us, is to pull all of the instructional material into Spanish and do it, do more of it and do it better.
And we have 2 young Hispanic members on the advisory board. First time ever that I know of. So, we are, staying to that and continue to grow on that.
So there is talk and movement on helping and engaging with the Hispanic community to further their trainings and do those kinds of things?
Absolutely.
So I have a question that's a little off of that topic right there, and it's a brighter question, not so in depth on how the corporation is how is CFI working to help certified installers actually use their credentials to win bids, get hired, or earn more money? Is that part of the marketing plan as well?
Yeah, I mean, that comes back to the marketing, that value add, right? And what can we do for that membership? And part of it is that that training of how to network, how to market. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
So on
the commercial. Sorry, Daniel,
Jose.
On the commercial side, we've been marketing for many years through specification. If you pick up a commercial specification here in Kentucky, and I know it to be true in a lot of the surrounding states as well, that it says that you have to be a C2 certified mechanic to even bid the work. You're seeing more and more of that. It's harder to create that same angle to make an impression on the residential side of the industry. But it doesn't mean we're not making an effort. It's just there are some things that begrudgingly you don't seem to make much progress, but we haven't given up hope that we can impact that.
All right. And as far as the literature that you're saying that is stated or required, it's a little misleading at times looking at a commercial document where it says qualified versus certified, because that is a broad term. How can we get it back to when I first started looking at prints and drawings, it would say certified, not qualified? How can we get it back to that to better help the individuals investing in their education?
Yeah, just to reframe that, I think you're essentially asking how can it be there be more of the C2 certification requirements versus the quality of 5-year installer of quality. That's the most popular specification in the commercial world is quality installer of 5 years or more, which tells you nothing or does nothing versus saying CFI C2 certification. Is that essentially correct, Jose?
That is right, and it doesn't necessarily have to have that exact title, but it's got to have a measurable and maybe a title over that measurable that better describes the ability of an individual installer.
Well, I will tell you that there's room to improve. There's no question. Okay, and I will also tell you that one of the proudest things for me is to walk into a retail store I've never walked into before and see the bullseye on the door. At least there was a time when that was very important to the retailer. And I do think we can do a much better job of going back and attacking that segment more aggressively to bring value to the guys that are working locally. Like I said, commercial is what I do. It's what Paul does. So it's what you guys do. So we're all very familiar with what goes on in the commercial world. I think it's very important that we put some focus on the residential market as well, particularly in a year that it's been not so friendly. It's been pretty tough on a lot of our residential installers.
Well, the retailers really have to, there's just a quick opinion. The retailers really have to leverage their marketing to say, hey, we sell the same stuff pretty much as anybody else. What sets us apart is that on the door that you just walked by and seen. That's what sets us apart. That's in some version of that. Retailers could gain a lot of credit by leveraging their installer and the installer strength they have. I think that would be excellent.
Well, it's all a part of
when it comes
right? That's what you're trying to package is putting it all together from time of purchase through the install. And by having certified mechanics, you got a better chance of being successful. I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
When it comes to residential retail, the high-end, manufacturers are putting in their, NFIC even, some of them are, but they're putting in your everyday carpet and flooring that LVP and that's going out the door. That's going to come strictly down on the retailer knowing the value of what that is. The installer going out there knows what he's doing. That's a tough one. It's been that way, Jose, for years and years and years. That's, getting the consumer to understand the value of somebody certified. And that, that's a tough one.
Well,
there's a lot of work to be done.
To build on that, some of the questions, this will probably address a few of them. Are there going to be more talks with the mills to work with certified installers? Now, that's all the mills would have to actually put that in their installation instructions. They don't work with the installers. Mostly they work through a retailer or through a dealer. But, and then there was another one that pertained to that as well.
This one.
Yeah, the mills say there's not enough certified installers. So those two kind of go together, but is there more talks with the mills to further embrace the CFI certification as a standard for touching their products or anything like that?
Well, I don't think we've stopped talking to the mills. We've been dealing with the mills for years, and we've come up with a new program. Jerry Miller had the advanced commercial program. So I think the Topswood, we are tweaking our training to help the mills out at this point.
And you know, we have a mill representative in the installation world that's the whole family and everybody else in Dalton is very familiar with, Bruce Gentry. And, you know, they're coming back and they're looking at us more. So, yeah, I think, you know, we're making headway, but it doesn't happen overnight.
And you have to remember, two of our biggest sponsors for our convention, you know, they're showing up. Sean Mohawk, they're showing up. They're at our convention. They showed up in force last year to convention, and they're going to do the same thing this year. So we are moving in the right direction. It's not going to be easy. We're asking them to make some substantial changes, but we're not going to give up.
You know, this.
So I got to add something to that real quick. I'm sorry for interrupting here, but there was a comment that said if the mills are saying that there's a shortage of certified installers, then and if this is a whole marketing thing, then why aren't the mills marketing that? They might not need the literature that says must be installed by, but why aren't they marketing a certified installer to be the first person or company to look at?
You're absolutely right. And honestly, the fast answer is they're afraid to alienate anyone
or lose money.
So it's education of everyone of why it would be beneficial. That's why it's not an easy fix.
Now, I will say this, and it's not widely known and probably not widely exercised, but I do know for a fact that several mill tech reps are out there promoting CFI installers daily.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning if somebody calls in and says they've got a problem in their area and they're looking for somebody to help out, a lot of times those tech reps know everybody in the market and they call and say, hey, you know, Paul, can you run over and take a look at this? They've got a problem. They need some help on this woven product or whatever it might be. That has been going on for many, many years.
Yeah.
So it may not be a direct marketing, which certainly is what we'd like to be able to get to, but I'm going to tell you, your credentials do mean something.
And I think what a lot of the installers don't understand is they have to market themselves too, right? Because one of the questions from an email is what's being done to help the certified installers use their credentials to win bids, secure jobs, or raise their rates. And I've been to many just meetings where they're like, well, you guys are certified. I know because you guys market that. So you guys should be charging more. And I'm going to introduce you to this person because they've been having issues with this other company. And that's what you have to market yourself. Like as an installer, you have to be out there telling people, hey, I'm certified. Come check out my jobs.
And not only that, I'm certified, but why they care. You know, they're not going to get the callbacks. They're not going to have the problems. If the mill comes in or the product comes in and it's technically, you know, within spec, but it's not quite perfect, you're going to be able to install it, and it's going to be nobody's going to know that it was
defective.
Yeah, even though it's still within spec.
So I'm going to try to ask a couple of more questions here. What happened to the regional training program? Right now we are seeing one person for the most part.
I don't know that I feel like that program has gone away. Until recently, Dave was heading up the education division of the association, and I thought Dave did a great job of keeping all the regional trainers involved, and if they weren't actually out doing training, they were coming to train the trainer sessions and doing things internally. I will tell you that obviously as the residential market has been down this year, there are fewer carpet trainings going on, which a lot of those regional certifiers are people that have specialized on the carpet side, which probably has reduced a little bit of their involvement. But that program has not gone away. There still are regional certifiers. I don't think I've seen Jimmy Salisbury's name come up. Jimmy is a gentleman out of Indiana that is a regional certifier, and Rollins worked with him a couple times, and Jimmy has done a great job, and I'm sure that somewhere in the near future he's probably going to get promoted up to senior manager or senior certifier. But no, the program's still very much in effect. We're probably not utilizing it as heavily as we maybe once did when we were doing more carpet training, but it's still there.
Is there a reason why the mills don't sponsor trainings and try to get more people to them? To your,
I mean, some in an indirect fashion, some mills do. You know, Tarkett goes out and does their own training.
true. I think that this might have been more of a CFI, like teaming up with CFI to promote a training in a large metro or something. It's not. It's a one-liner question. So
yeah, I've had two regional or two advanced resilient certifications here in Kentucky in the last year. On both occasions, I had Shaw come in one time. I had Zern's group come in one time and help out. So we've had mills participating. They don't necessarily sponsor the events, and I don't know from a legality standpoint if they can do it any more than you or I, Paul, could sponsor for our subcontractors. There may be an issue there I don't know of, but you would think that they could participate more than they do. But we're seeing more participation than we did in the past. So I don't want.
Yeah, I don't want to call not to call the mills out, I should say, but the, obviously they want their products installed correctly. I think that's the essence of the question, and so getting involved in not indirectly but directly in specific trainings that maybe they're having problems with. Who knows? I don't. I'm reading into the question a little bit.
Yeah.
That's
So this next question is kind of a two-parter, right? So I'm going to pop this one up here. Elena says, when is the next C2 certification? Because she sees a lot of intro classes. And then we had one come in that says, why does it seem like the FCEF is receiving more attention and resources while CFI relies heavily on volunteers? Because those a lot of intro classes are tied to the FCEF, I feel like, and doing that type of thing.
Well,
why are we seeing
FCEF is teaching high school and college shop teachers how to get students interested in joining the trade, right? So that's one aspect, but that's the FCEF's, that's their resources, and they pulled together those trainings.
I guess I was just tying it together because for that answer exactly, right? Because it's not just one or the other. This is coming from them, even though it's the same people that may be doing the classes. It's not necessarily coming out of CFI's budget or anything.
No, that was,
doesn't the training come from CFI's instruction though?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Doesn't the training come from CFI's instruction? Like, wasn't the curriculum written?
There is a separate curriculum that was developed, and again, Dave, thank you for your involvement. Dave had a lot to do with developing that curriculum for their.
Dave's popular today.
Yeah,
he's always popular.
I think he's on here. So I might as well give him a sign. But Dave had a lot to do with helping develop that curriculum and taught the very first class there in Dalton, Georgia, at the community college. Okay. That is not, quote, an FC or CFI program. However, when we go out and do our 5-week sessions or some of the other programs that we have, FCF funding helps pay for the scholarship to allow that installer to go participate.
Okay, and so Another one is with an association that utilizes a budget of over $2 million. Why does the WFCA expect CFI to survive utilizing so many volunteers?
Because it's for the members. I mean, we can't have it both ways. We're either, for the installer, by the installer, or we're run by the big dog, right? So
I think it's almost a part of our culture. Look how we started out. Look at how many certifiers ran across the country doing work until this day. Look at everybody sitting here right now. We're all volunteers. It's almost in CFI.
I mean, I'm not getting paid for being on here today.
Oh, the check's in the mail, Roland.
I was all ready to write my bill up for.
I ought to charge you for how long it took you to get your camera.
Well, I went to my laptop.
Oh, good.
I'm on my laptop.
Roland, if other people have seen the dancing that you did earlier,
oh my God,
maybe you'd gotten paid for that. I don't know.
So I think this actually ties back to you saying that, everything is being marketed by the same people now. And I think that was one of the issues before, is they seen all this marketing for only the FCEF and nothing was coming out for CFI. So it kind of was like, why are they getting so much attention and we're not?
Well, and FCEF also gets funding from the manufacturers,
and
and grants.
Wait, the grants. I'm going to tell you, I don't know the actual numbers, but I have a feeling that Kay spends more than 68% of her time filling out grant information. They run a lot on grants, federal grants. So you cannot compare the two at all.
Yeah,
totally different.
That runs kind of across the organization, and maybe a major point to make. WFCA has multiple different entities within it that have to run separately and differently because of things like that. So if you take CFI, put it in a silo and say, why aren't we getting what they're getting? It can't be done that way. And maybe that clears some confusion up. The fact is it just can't be. I know from other experience that FCEF can't share grant money that they won the grant on for a very specific thing that they're going to use that grant money for. So it can't just get shoved over to another entity or something. So each one has to operate differently because each one's a different organization, which goes back to your original comment.
And
we are separate, but we're under the same umbrella.
And not only that, it also ties back to when Leslie was like, nonprofits are under even stricter guidelines than a for-profit company. So they have to keep track of exactly how they're spending all those funds, because all those funds have to only be allocated towards what it was meant for.
So maybe you just found out.
I would love to be able to go after a lot of grants. I personally am not good at grant writing. So if there's any experts out there that want to look for grant money for CFI, you know how to get a hold of me.
Or some grant money to pay Roland and coffee.
Yeah, I seen that. They didn't think there was enough coffee beans in the world to really pay him off.
Hey, I need a cup. It's past my cup time.
No, back to the volunteerism, guys. It'd be great to have a limited amount of funds to do whatever we wanted, and to be able to do more marketing and be able to do more promotions and all kinds of things that would be fun to do if we had more money, right?
And more time.
But you do have to pick and choose what brings the biggest bang for the buck sometimes. And without our volunteers, we couldn't accomplish a great deal that we have. And
well, there's also
it's part of our culture. We built this organization on volunteerism, and it continues. And for the foreseeable future, it probably will be a volunteer organization. That's
like
one
Leslie
of the
said, it's tough to have it both ways. You get volunteers, and I'm going to tie this into what Jen commented but you got different entities and volunteers, and some are ran differently. And Jen says, there's legalities that manage the divisions. So there's legal reasons why certain things happen. Let me kick.
I'm back.
Bring him back in.
I'm back.
So, because of those legalities, each division or organization sometimes has to operate differently. That's just an expansion of what I said earlier. But
so it almost sounds like it's beneficial to have or to invest into an individual or a team that can go grant chasing to increase potential revenue to do a little bit more. Because that is a tedious task.
There may be some there's restrictions on who can get grants, and if you take in a certain amount of money through a certain way, that you're not allowed to apply for different grants. That's a whole rabbit hole. It would take a whole podcast to go through, to be honest with you. When you start talking about grant money, it's got so many things that are tied to even applying for the grant. But I thought Kevin's next question here was a nice one. What types of things can we look forward to at convention this year? What can be said to a new installer that's never been to convention to entice them to go?
Like I said earlier when we first signed on, I've been at 29 of the last 30. And there's certainly a reason I go every year. And for me, it's kind of like a shot in the arm. You always talk about the dog days of the summer, and people that work in the commercial field and that do education probably really understand what I'm talking about. By the time you're done with your summer workload, you're pretty much exhausted. Going to convention has always kind of re-energized me. It always kind of recenters me and gets me back to feeling good about what I'm doing. And being around so many like-minded people and feeding off their energy as well is something that I think is unique to our convention.
Yeah, so and the convention now is also
anything else, camaraderie and the opportunity to network is a reason to go.
When I first knew about CFI and CFI convention, I was literally an artist in an art department doing banners and shipping things off to a tabletop trade show. We used to show up at the at the convention, do just the trade show part, and then come home. We, as a company, Roberts totally was missing the value of being able to connect with the installers. Ralph Richens was really the one that opened my eyes up to that and said, yeah, I stay for the whole thing because the trade show part isn't even a little bit the important part of it. The important part is meeting the members and networking and understanding who this family is. I didn't really get what he was saying until I personally went and stayed for longer than just the trade show. And that really opened my eyes to what CFI was all about and who's behind that CFI logo, the face and the people and the family. So
yeah, and at the same time, the organization, I think, across the board needs to grow.
Yeah.
So you have this volunteer family kind of atmosphere, but we cannot deny that you lose a little bit of that as you grow. And I don't know anybody who could argue that it has to grow. There's not enough. You gotta. I'm speaking as a flooring and company. Rod's laughing at me. We need more guys, more installers, more. I'd say
people, not guys. It could be women.
Well, it's certainly women, and the women that I talk to love being called one of the guys sometimes. So I never had a problem there.
Some of them prefer it.
That's right. But
I call
it's like the organization's going to have to grow, and people. This is just my opinion. As we grew as a company, and as Go Carrera grew, and we're going through a rebrand into Trade Tap. the fact is that to grow, you lose a little bit of what you were originally. And I'm not saying that you can't keep the essence of what it was originally and maintain that installer, by installer, for installer, and still grow. But you do have to realize things change with growth. That's just that's Paul's
And I think that's what
chatter.
the question kind of got at. Do you think that it's sustainable long term to have just a volunteer culture, or at some point is it going to have to kind of change to where um, you have to start paying a little bit more to some of these people in order to get the return or see the people come out that you want?
All I can say is that I would hope not. I would hope that our culture is sustainable, and that people will continue to volunteer their time, because it's really about what you get back. I know everybody on this call right now has volunteered your time to do something, whether it's coach youth sports. I know at least 2 guys here that do that, um, or going out and help with the training. You haven't done it for the money that you make, because frankly, there isn't that much money in training. You do it for the passion that you have for the kids or for the people that you're trying to teach. And as long as that rests somewhere inside our chest, I think we'll be able to continue to sustain it. Now, is there going to be a different balance at some point in time? Do you maybe have to have a few more staff members to pick up as growth occurs? Absolutely. You got to have plans for that.
Well, and the
Should,
chapters kind of play with this well too. I mean, you can grow and then keep a real, intimate kind of setting because of chapters too. So kudos to 12 chapters there, Roland.
Yeah, and you just get things going on with the chapters and keep that family feel. But as far as Kevin's the value at the convention, I think the growth of having more vendors there that they can come in and meet, and more trainings and more educational things. So I think there's a lot that you can tell an installer who's never went. Besides, hey, we're family, because they might not quite understand that as much as we do. They have to go there at least once before they get that
Yep.
feeling. But we have so much going on with the educational events, the vendors, and everything else to give them a good showing if they came.
Roland, you just said something too that I want to kind of expand on, or have you guys expand on. And you said family. Now, looking back at some of the notes and some of the questions and comments that we've had over, dozens of episodes, it's good old boys, brotherhood. And there's been a lot of other terms that have been tossed around. Can you explain some of that and what maybe the misconception is? Because I will say, when I went there, it wasn't anything like it was explained to me. And I didn't meet a lot of phenomenal people there, and I still continue to stay in contact with as many as possible year to year, whether it's through the podcast or over the phone.
Well, I call it, I guess I said boys, but just people. I'm right now in the process of being going to donate. I'm donating a part of the product. The manufacturer's donating part of the product, and our chapter is going to donate the labor up here in Pennsylvania at a place. And I'm going to be calling our chapter guys, and like we've done so many times, and we're going to head up there. It's going to be 1,600 square feet, and I know they got my back. I committed them to them, and they got my back. And so to me, that's that good old boy club, I guess, or the family together. They're all installers somewhere else, making money, but they're willing to take that day. This will probably be a day and a half to come in, representing CFI, representing our chapter, to go up and put this flooring in. And so that, that's what the CFI is. When I did the shows that you helped me on, who came to all these shows and helped do those shows? It was CFI guys and people. And I called Crystal, a guy now, because she helped us on some, and Jen did, and they helped around the country, all over the country, and Robert Irvine was just blown. His mind was blown that people would come and help somebody from different parts of the country. He couldn't believe it. So that's a good old boys club.
Yeah.
That we have with CFI.
And you know, if people are using Good Old Boys Club in a negative, you know, back in the day, that's who the installers were, the good old boys. Today, that's not who the installers are, and that's not what CFI reflects. If you look just at the advisory board, we've got people that have been around for several years. We've got Hispanics, we've got young people, we've got women. I think our current advisory board really represents the industry and who CFI is. So, so I think the Good Old Boy Network is not. It's not an accurate description of who we are today.
So
Well,
just to clarify,
I think that
it's not
that's-
an exclusive club.
No.
Like it's not the misconception.
It's
that's
just who the
it's-
installers used to be.
a group of installers who got together and are more than willing to help each other out.
I was welcomed with open arms. I know
So
that.
was I.
So some believe that the marketing should come from the members because they live, eat, and breathe CFI, know what is going on in the industry. The bottom line there is that as you got to kind of have some confluence, and marketing is not even being, if you're a great installer, and I'll let you guys answer this, but just my thoughts is being a great installer doesn't mean you're great at marketing. Marketing, there's companies that pay very high dollar for marketing professionals, and almost all big companies have a complete expensive marketing campaigns. It's because it's a whole art within itself. Us installers should really focus on being the best installers we can. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Well,
and the really, Elaine, I think you were the one that asked that. I personally have not had any super in-depth discussions with Farida. If we wanted to get on a call with her to talk through some of the marketing strategies, I'm sure she would take that call. Yeah, we can talk through that. That's not a no. It's just a let's do this together.
Let me say this. I think
Well, I don't know. I market CFI every day. I go out and do my job. I go out and represent CFI and NFIC every day that I'm working and promote it. So the simple thing of that is can go a long ways.
Yeah.
You don't always have to
But-
be.
But I mean, I think what Elena is talking about is something.
Yeah, I know what
Yeah,
she's talking about. I'm just saying we can.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
she
it's
wants to about
flyers and
having
shirts
in-house.
and all that kind of stuff, let's talk through
Right,
that.
I
But if
understand.
you're sitting there talking about being, you know, what it means to be certified, and you do not have the brochure or the flyer that you need, call somebody, ask somebody. Maybe it exists.
She says just because you have a degree in marketing doesn't mean you know how to market, and I would say that's pretty much across the board in a lot of
The problem is
industries.
yeah, it
But-
can be flipped too. Just because you have Photoshop doesn't mean you should be doing marketing. So it goes both ways.
Well, yeah, and I think that you don't have to lose to marketing. So I appreciate your offer. I mean that if nothing else, that shows how the organization is kind of like, oh, you got a suggestion, let me hear it, and let's talk to Frida. I mean, so it's open that direction. I hope that it's kind of clarified some of that too, because I've heard Rod say before, and what you just indicated, Leslie, is if you want to discuss these things, give one of you four, a call and say, hey, could I talk to you about the marketing? Also, you have there was a reply to that comment that they have, everybody has internet and social media and marketing. If you have talent there, I think that you're probably free to market yourself and your talents and the fact that you're CFI all you want.
Yeah,
Let
absolutely.
me add one point real quick. And I wanted to respond. Jeremy had made a comment about not really having the time to be able to take off work and get more involved. And my suggestion would be, if there is a chapter in your area, that's a good place to start. If there's not one, consider forming one.
And that's where, you said that people volunteer their time for sports, right? And that's what, if he wanted to set that up, that's what he could do is, hey, I'm not, instead of dedicating my volunteer time to sports, I'm going to set up this chapter over here and get a group of people together.
Yeah. But I will tell you, chapters are also a good way to market yourself. There's a lot of connectivity in the marketplace. We have our chapter meetings oftentimes at distributors, and we'll invite retailers to come in. And no, they're not there to shop to find their next generation of installers, but that doesn't mean that connections aren't made. We don't promote it. We don't intend for it to be that vehicle. That is supposed to be sanctum. You're not supposed to do any recruiting at a chapter meeting, and I'm not suggesting that you should. But as an installer, take note of who shows up at those chapter meetings. Those are the people that are interested in supporting quality installation. If you're not with the group now that you feel that they're supporting you in the right way, there's other options out there.
Right. And there's actually, we had an email that said about supporting installers and stuff. So is there any initiative to get the WFCA members to pay their certified installers more, since they are under the same, CFI falls under their umbrella? Like, are we talking to the WFCA about, hey, if someone is certified, are they getting paid
I think
more?
one of the other questions was also, are the retailers in the WFCA it was stated that they're not, but I don't know. Why are they not requiring their installers to be CFI? It's a big organization with a lot of retailers. Why are they not, not requiring? I don't know the relationship there, or can't read into that question anymore. But essentially, why are the WFCA members themselves not saying, hey, if you're going to work here, you're going to be CFI trained?
Well, let me verify that for you. WFCA membership is not taking as big an advantage of CFI as they should. I make a joke of it, but really it's serious business to me. Every board meeting I go to, they all know before I leave there, I'm going to bring it up, right? Guys, how many of you have hosted a training? How many of you sent an installer to a certification in the past year? And I get a few hands, but not near as many as you'd like to see. I don't know what it's going to take, because I don't think it's unique to WFTA. We shouldn't be pointing the finger at them. I think it's
there's an obvious reason, not to interrupt. There's an obvious reason the finger's pointed at them. It's because they own they're the ahead of the umbrella. Right. So yeah, that could be said for any.
But I'm just saying it's
large thing. But that's why I think that it's pointed that direction.
Yeah, but you also have to realize that even just having this conversation right here, right now, gives Rod the advantage of going and saying, look, it's being noticed that you guys aren't taking advantage of it. So even this discussion is good.
Well, here, I'm going to add something to that. I challenge the WFCA to incentivize retailers to use certified installers for their projects. Come up with a program that benefits a retailer if they were to use certified installers. In turn, it'll benefit the installers who are investing their time and their money into higher education, into continuing education.
Let me pose a question for you guys. What I'd love to see you do is invite people from all the different organizations, whether it be WFCA. I'm a Fuse member, so I'll throw Jeff Gordon in there. He'll appreciate the fact I'm calling him out. But Starnet, USA Floors, FCICA, I'm naming commercial organizations. There are others on the residential side. Why don't you guys invite them in and ask them why they're not supporting training? Seriously,
Sounds like there's an issue across the board.
I'd like to hear what the issues are, because I've spent almost 30 years as a part of CFI trying to figure that one out. And every time I think I find out I'm not as close as I thought I was.
Rod, are you saying that there's going to have to be a part 2 to this, where we do bring in those people and start asking them the questions that we're asking you guys as well? How do we get this under a collaborative?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, sounds good to me, Daniel. Let's bring them in. We'll jump in with you.
All right.
You know, because CFI has been asking that question to the manufacturer since Jim started it. He used to go to the manufacturer, you know, constantly, and go walk in there saying, you need to have support certification. So this is not something new. It's not something that hasn't been done. It's not something haven't been working on. You know, I mean, we agree with that question ourselves 100%. You know, when I get called in to go fix a job or do a job start, why should I even been there? You guys should have been trained before, so I didn't have to come in there.
If you'll give me a second, I'll go get my soapbox before I get started on this next rant.
No, I think this is.
We all know this is an industry problem. It doesn't rest with the manufacturing community. It doesn't rest with the commercial contractors or retailers. We all need to share responsibility if we're going to ever accomplish what we set out to, and that is to create a more professional workforce. And
yeah, well, one of the
associations out there that can participate.
I think up until this point, it's never been brought to the attention like we are now, though, right? It's always been talked about behind closed doors, and only certain groups have been there to listen in on it. And once you bring it to the public's attention, maybe this is going to start those conversations, so that way we can finally start getting somewhere with it. But it's, how are we going to do that? Like Dave said, it sounds like a live convention roundtable.
Yeah, well, it's got to be multiple levels. Like Rod was just saying, you got manufacturers, but you also have the industry associations like your Fuse and your WFCAs and your StarNets and your, again, I'm listing mostly commercial places, but then from there, the dealers have to participate, and you got to create the demand that got faded away when subcontracting became such a major piece of our industry back in the, early 90s, when that really happened. And I've talked about this situation on this podcast multiple times, but when that happened, that is when the companies lost control of sending installers to training, because they were their employees, to having to rely on subcontractors to go get their training on their own. That's a dynamic that's tough to overcome, but the demand's going to have to come all the way through the industry, not just on one level, whether it's manufacturer. I mean, even we talked earlier, architects in the commercial world being involved with quality assurance portion of the specs, recommending or requiring certification at some level, or some type of validation of skill. And then the manufacturers and the dealers, all the way through.
Agreed.
Speaking on the subject, we need to make sure that if the WFCA is not having their own installers be certified, then they should not be part of the executive board. Good luck with that.
Yeah, gotta love it.
Yeah, good luck with that. yeah. Or hey, we can't agree with you more, but
well, maybe WSCA will. We can engage in some conversations with the members there. It'd be awesome to have like Fuse with 6 or 7 Fuse members, StarNet with 6 or 7 StarNet members, or 10 or 15. I don't care. And ask, where is the pitfall, or where is the hurdle that's keeping that from happening?
I think you guys should put this on the road and just go to all these different conventions and do the show live.
we do. Hey, we are, I believe, doing a live podcast at Tice this year. So
I know it was a plug. It was kind of shameless, but
Thank you.
whatever. That's okay.
I think it's
Well-
just we just, it's easier to lead the conversation when you have a platform to put it on, right? And it just so happens that we'd like to be that platform. So I appreciate everyone for coming on here and sharing everything. There is a comment that we did get a few times in email as well. I'm gonna look for it. This right here. So, what is being done to set up more training and certifications? And then this kind of ties into what Elena said earlier about, I think it was Elena, it might have been Denise or someone, but kind of that where we brought in the FCEF, but we know that they're separate now because we see a lot of things happening on the beginner side, but how are we going to pull more of the people that have been in it for a while to get certified when there's not those things that are scheduled?
Well, it's interesting, Roland, let me get to you in a sec. It's interesting that, the federal government tracks unemployment on 2 levels, the unemployed and the underemployed. Training is a little like that. We not only don't have enough installers in the industry, but we got too many that are undertrained, that really don't have the level of training they need. One of the worst things that could happen in this industry is also maybe one of the best. LFT, luxury vinyl tile, come along, right? And it became an easy application for the installers. I don't know a guy that doesn't love installing it. They make very good money. They high volume. They can get it down fast. They're making money doing it. That's great. But it doesn't take the average installer a lot of experience to get to the point where they're comfortable with it. I'm not suggesting that they know everything they need to know, but they get real comfortable very quickly on installing LVT. The problem is as you're moving forward, that doesn't encourage them to grow.
Well, it's the old carpet tile problem. How many broadloom guys do you have
That's right.
right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
And then a big one that I think we should touch on is, what about refresher courses to maintain your CFI status instead of just paying your dues? Like continuing education. And it doesn't have to be hands-on all the time, right?
Well, one
So
time there was
CEUs to
a
maintain your
continuing
membership
education
as
portion.
opposed to dues?
Well, not as opposed to dues. Like, you still have to
Or-
pay your dues, right? It's a
Well,
you have to get that money in.
Armstrong used to,
Go ahead.
Armstrong had that up until they shut theirs down. That every 5 years you had to go on and take a pay $50 and take a written test, just to review, to keep up with all their new products and their new glues and their new methods and new backings. So you had to do it once every 5 years. So not saying that wouldn't be a bad idea, I guess, but it would be something that had to be really looked at.
Right. And so just take moisture testing, for instance. You have to get certified, and then after 4 years, you have to take the written test, and then after another 4 years, you have to do the entire course again.
Yeah.
So is there going to be, I guess, can there be conversations of something like that rather than just pay your dues and then you're good for life?
Well, we've always had a philosophy that once CFI, always CFI, that we would never pull your certification for not paying your dues or for not keeping up. But I will tell you that there has been some discussions in the past to put a date on your certificate card so that people could identify the last time you went through training. And I do think that that's something you'll be seeing in the near future. We've had quite a bit of discussion about it.
Well, and with all of the updates to all the floorings and how fast the different types of floorings are changing, it would be beneficial to do that. Several years ago, I don't think flooring changed as quickly and dramatically as it is right now. So I think it's a different day and age, and we should look at that. Yes. I think the other thing to kind of circle back around to the original question is one of the things we are doing for training and certification is we really need to educate people on why they want to host trainings and certifications. And we've put together a flyer that people can use at distributors. People can understand what they need to do in order to host or to coordinate a training. Because a lot of people don't know that they can set one up themselves. They don't know how to start to do that. So we put together a flyer that we can make available to anyone that needs it, that kind of just gives a basic of how much space you need, how much time do you need, how to coordinate the date, who to call if you have questions. We just completed that a couple weeks ago, and we can get that out to anybody that's interested. But really, we just need to educate people on why they should host a training or why they should get their local distributor involved as well.
Yeah, I think that may be one of the drawbacks to CFI is, but we're like we said, we're running on volunteer status, right? But sometimes it's easier to just have things set up and you show up than it is to, like, even if you're the instructor, right? But there's a little bit more work there. But how can we get things so that way they're just set up and you don't have to really necessarily worry about something like that? Someone says here, I can't find it now, but that's kind of what they were saying was, like, the person that's putting on the certification, do they have to pay for everything, or is that something that CFI provides as far as the materials for the boxes and everything?
No, once we put on a certification, we provide everything that you need.
Well, I take it, we have to expand on that. We take care of all the tools, the boxes, all that stuff. We ask for the space, and then we ask for if they would host lunch. No, they don't. Then usually the guys go out and the people go out and eat on their own. But we don't supply the lunches. Usually the host does that. So there's going to be a cost to the person who's hosting it. Some.
Right, and that should be, and that's why you got to have these, talk to the retailers, talk to the distributors to try and get these costs offset, right? The retailers need these guys. The distributors want to help out any way they can. So why not just reach out and see what can be sponsored?
Well, and there again, when it comes to material, I know the last 3 that I've done, when John talked to them and Jen setting it up, they talked to him about the material, and each one has said, well, let me take care of that. And they called the manufacturer and said, hey, I'm hosting a training. I need this material. And the manufacturer shipped it into them. I've had ones that said, hey, I stock items and you have this kind of stuff, this much of stock, I'll let you use. So if we can utilize that, we're going to do that. I mean, without hesitation. But if they can't, we're still not going to not do it. CFI is going to get it shipped in.
Okay. And then is there any, like, going back to, it'd be easier if this was set up for us, is there anyone in the office whose job is setting up, scheduling events and trainings, or is that just based on
No, Jen does that full time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question that came across, and this has come across a couple of times.
Yeah, Dan really wants this question
the
answered.
NFIC is, why isn't it incorporated with the other acquisitions or not being advertised? Is the NFIC just absorbed in the CFI training? It was talked about earlier. One of the previous comments was that the NFIC didn't have a logo change, or was not part
Yes.
of that.
Yes, it did.
And
They did.
I think that was this misconception maybe. But is it so it is incorporated with the other acquisitions? It got a logo change. It got a refresher. Is that correct?
It did get a refresher, but it is not being absorbed into CFI. It is a standalone entity within WFCA, and yeah, it's separate.
NFIC is the NFIC.
And it'll continue to be known as NFIC. Is that correct?
It will be. It's being administered by CFI, meaning we're handling the clerical portion of it. But NFIC has its own committee, and they're setting up their own trainings.
So Alan says that we need to have things in the flyer, who supplies what for each training or cert, so that way people know how to sell the training when they're going to places.
Alan, that flyer already exists.
Yeah, it's already in the
flyer.
flyer.
Why you haven't seen it, but please reach out to us later and we'll get it to you.
All right, so I do want to go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to say, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what Alan's asking and what the flyer is.
Well, there's actually several flyers. The one that Leslie was just referring to is a quick step-by-step instruction on how to, literally from the point of conception, hey, I want to have a training. How do I go about doing that? There is a perception out there that it's harder than it really is. And I think that's just simply because not having done it, it looks monumental, and it really isn't that big a deal. So one of the things to try and lessen the load and to try and make it a little bit easier is we establish a mentoring program within that step. So when you reach out and say, hey, you contact the national office, you talk to John or Jen, and you say, I want to host an event. I'm considering hosting an event. They, and then in turn, will contact one of us that are on the mentoring committee saying, reach out and talk to Sally down here in Chattanooga who wants to have an event. And then we'll help guide them through that process. Now, in terms of the other flyer that Alan was referring to is, I think Roland had described earlier, is that we actually lay out, here are the things that you must have. This is how much space you need to be able to host a training in your facility. Here's how much electricity you need to have available. That is all laid out step by step.
Gotcha.
Okay.
How much longer is it going to be before training and certifications go digital, utilizing AI platforms? Essentially, everything is in person, but via a live stream of some sort.
Well, obviously, the hands-on is always going to have to be done live. Have we toyed with and talked about a digital format for the education side where people could sign on and do some of the preliminary work? Yeah, we have. We've talked quite a bit about it. In fact, creating a digital platform, as I'm sure Paul could tell us all, is not cheap. It's a pretty sizable venture, and so it's something that we've talked about, but we haven't budgeted for yet. We're still in the stage where we're trying to figure out how to make that fit and to make.
There's definitely been some discussions around how, to leverage technology to lighten the load on the training and focus on the part that still has to be physical, which is the hand skills. So, it looks. Who is setting up the NFIC trainings? Is that the same process as you described earlier?
Yeah, it is. And we've had answers real quick telling them to set one up. Anybody can set up a training. I mean, it's open. You just, there again, then you do what Rod said, call the headquarters. They can call one of us mentors.
And that includes the
to help them
NFIC.
guide
So I think that was a specific question to that one.
Yeah, that includes NFIC. So let's say, Paul, you wanted to put an NFIC up your area. All right. You start getting it lined up. You make a call to headquarters. John or Jen will then get all your information, and then they'll pass it on to one of the mentors, and pass it on to Kevin Keith. He's one on the board. Pass it to Rod. Pass it to me, and then we'll start working with you, getting it lined up. So it's not anybody who wants to can set up a training, and that goes with NFIC and CFI.
I think in today's world, having some of these things capable digitally are going to, and I know that CFI is looking at some of that stuff, could be a huge help, because people are used to signing up for things online and doing those types of deals online. And the more you can create that scenario in today's world, the better you are.
So now I want to kind of go, because we've gotten quite a few questions about convention, right? So CFI convention is seen as valuable, but also expensive. What's being done to make it more accessible to working installers?
Well, first off, we've moved it. It's not going to be in Orlando this year. It's going to be in Nashville, more central to where people.
But also the price went up.
Well, travel hopefully has gone down. How much did that? You know what? And I apologize. I don't even know how much it went up. Let me look that up.
I think it went up $100 or something.
It went $100. Yeah.
So obviously the convention has been a good tool for getting people acclimated with CFI. Many people, even on this panel, stated that they went to a convention and that was the clicker. So, are there ways, or I think that the essence of that question is like, it's expensive and I'm taking off work to go to the convention. What is CFI doing to kind of make
John
that
says it only went up 30, so my apologies.
Well, I mean, so this is kind of a double-edged sword, right? As CFI, as we are scheduling things for CFI, we want to make sure that there's speakers that people want to hear from. We want to make sure that the programs are something that are educational. We need to make sure that people taking off work and traveling here are going to get something that is worth their money. We can cut a lot of costs, but then what are the installers really getting from it?
Right, because that's one of the questions too, is
classes aren't there.
One of the questions is, what's the ROI for someone attending convention, right? What are we talking about here? And you kind of touched on that as far as the education aspect, and I can attest to that because I've been to a few of them, and yeah, you're going from class to class, learning all day, and it doesn't sound
Constantly.
fun, but when you're a floor nerd, that's what you want to do.
Yes. I will tell you that, the biggest impact to the cost of convention, this is probably what most people have. It's the cost of food.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Everything's went up. So I think
I don't know how hard that team worked to try and keep the cost down this year, and that's the best they could really do, was just a modest increase, because food expenses went up 30% in the last 12 months. Well, if you looked at that in terms of what we paid last year at Erosion Shingle Creek, and by the way, I love that facility. I just don't want to go there every year.
Yeah.
But
I mean, just look at the price of eggs. Like, not even just conventions, just you going to the grocery store to buy eggs. Everything went up.
So when we're looking for a location, we were very conscious of the fact that we had to look at it in terms of where can we be more centralized to the membership, because driving in is substantially cheaper than flying in.
Right. So Scott brings up a point right here where he says, is there any way that if you attend convention, your dues are covered for the year rather than having to pay dues and then still pay everything for convention?
Well, the reality of it is you could blend the rate. You're probably still going to end up paying the same amount of money, guys. I'm not going to. Could we increase the cost of convention by $100 and offer you your dues to be paid? Sure, anything's possible, but the bottom line is that the dollar amount would work out to be much the same. Now, I'm speaking for myself, not for the organization in this moment. We've never really investigated that. And with joint convention with FCEF, it would be a little bit more complicated because of the way the dollars get divvied up at the end of the whole process. But could it be done? We can look into it.
Well, a version of that is done in other organizations, which is you bring in 3 CFI members, new members, and your dues are paid for the year, or this type of thing.
Yeah.
So getting more involved, and I don't know where that lands with if that is possible, but you're bringing value, and therefore you earn many companies do that, right? You bring in 2 or 3, whatever the number, new members, and that pays for your convention, something like that. And
some incentive, he says.
That would benefit both sides.
And we've thought about doing something similar with, can we offer a bigger discount to members that are taking the next level of classes to incentivize them to, all that is being looked at and studied. And I wish we could get to some of this stuff sooner and reach a conclusion on some of it quicker, but it really takes time to kind of map through things.
For sure.
Nate says that he was having issues registering, like paying dues and registering for convention have been problematic. Is all of that behind now? Have you guys heard of any issues that are coming up with people not able to or having issues with registering?
We had a very big problem. That's to say the least. We had a very big problem. We switched computer systems. And anybody that's ever gone through that nightmare where you try and integrate an old system with a new one can probably speak to just how complicated that becomes. What ended up happening is we lost some of the membership sign-in information. So when we converted to the new program, members couldn't sign in. That was for quite a period of time. That was unbeknownst to us. We didn't understand that process was going on. So yes, that has been taken care of. Anybody that's having problems, all they need to do is call into the office. We can set them up with the new sign-in information, and they're on and they're done. It's pretty quick and easy, but they will probably, if they can't sign on now, and we recaptured some of this, but if they still can't sign on, then just call into the office. We'll get you set up.
There's some chatter. There's 2 or 3 different comments about United Front and other locations of training. Does anybody, can other organizations set up trainings with CFI? That seems to be the question if I add them all together.
Anybody can set up a certification or a training with CFI.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was really the question, Paul. I'm trying to figure out what the intent was there.
Well, I can read the question directly because it came up. Does anybody even another training? I have a phenomenal training facility in Fort Worth, Texas. This is Robert Varden. Mm-hmm. Does anybody, even another organization, I would love to host a CFI event. That by itself, mixed with people stating great facility from what I can see, and yes, a united front on the training and education. So those are comments and questions. Is there, that's a odd question. Let me clear the air for a second. That's an odd question because it's another training entity essentially asking to or offering their facility to do a training of CFI. I think that would be, my opinion, quite odd. Although maybe having a little bit of unity for installers, I think that training entity can use the facility to do their trainings. So I am reading the questions. These aren't mine. Just to be
Right.
clear, I'm
Well,
trying to
it's-
clarify as best as I can what the multiple responses to that are, and post
Is
that
it
to the
is that
panel.
is that like Utsin and Arnex in the same place at the same time in the same room talking about the products that do the same things? I think that there's a line and a level of partnership that can be formed and understanding that can be formed across separate training entities because everyone has the same mission to some aspect, and that's to spread the word, to increase awareness and education. And to some extent, there has to be a line drawn, I know. But there's also got to be a level of acceptance saying we're both trying to better the industry.
So I'm going to jump in, and it is kind of an odd question because I don't think that Pepsi would ask Coca-Cola to come over and train in their facility. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about. And AFT is a great training organization, and there's several people that support both CFI and AFT, right? So it is a little bit weird because it's competition. Now, having said that, competition isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. You look at Roberts and Crane and Gunlock, we're all doing more and doing better because there is competition. And because of that competition, the installer is the one that's winning because we're coming out with better tools. I
think
understand.
that's a good point. You always have to have competition, and the bottom line is that there can be some camaraderie without necessarily, like your Pepsi, Coca-Cola example. But I also, to be devil's advocate a little bit, don't want to have. I think people don't want to have this type of industry or training of installers be quite as like cutthroat as corporate America. So you take corporate America, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Is there a way to like not have that type of thing, but still understand they train their way, you train your way. There's
Well-
two different trainings, and you both have your own unique way of doing that. And so for it, it may be odd. Although the question was, I think, a little bit hard to answer. At the end of the day, it's also important that like you don't no one's at it doesn't seem to me, and it hasn't came up until now, that there's any ill will going on. It's just probably not going to train our training at your training facility where you train your trainings. We both have our facilities, and we can cross you can have installers that take both, and there's value in that. But that's my 2 cents of it. It's a difficult question to approach, actually.
Paul, I'd like to put in my 2 cents here for a second. Just in the last 2 months, I was one was here. I was putting on an LVP laminate certification. That was the one we had a full house on, and there was a gentleman here from a dealer, and he came up to me and said, "Oh," he says, "in 2 weeks, I'm going to be going up to New Hampshire. AFT is doing a 2-day the inspection class, and me and my owner are going up." And I said, "Great, go up. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. That's what we need to do in this industry. All right. I had a guy call me from out west and said, I'd really like to come out to your training. He said, I just can't afford it, and I can't take that long to travel, and I can't afford the airfare. He says, but they're having one in Wichita. I said, go to it. I mean, that's what we need to be, you know, is you know good, training is training, and like I don't know who said it earlier, might have been Philip. I went up to Pittsburgh and went through a training up there. I mean, there's nothing wrong, like Leslie said, with good competition or good things. It makes us better. You know, in my town, I have a store down the street, one of the biggest in town, been around for years. I tell people if they come in here, they'll, well, we've been up to Peterson's. I said, good. You know, I'm going to show you what I can do, and I'm going to make my value what I can do to be. Hopefully, you buy from me. But if you bought from Peterson's, they're a good company. I know the owner; he's a real good person. And you don't lose sleep. You build each other up. So,
Right. So
Yeah. Well, I think
Robert
the bottom
says
line is,
Robert did say sorry. He didn't mean to throw a wrench in there. He loves CFI and don't see them as a competitor. When there's been multiple comments that like this one saying that the only competition is the untrained installers, and when you look
That's
at it
right.
that way, that's exactly what it is. So it's not throwing a wrench in the call or anything. I mean, that's what we were here for, was for these types of questions and getting the answers. And now that's what we have, right? It's a separate thing. It's not saying that, hey, don't go over there and do that. It's just, I'm not gonna go into your building and teach my class when we have our building that they can come to.
yeah, I think that, the bottom line is that there's plenty of guys and gals that are out there stating that they have, um, that they're installers and never have received any industry training whatsoever. That is who our biggest that's the biggest audience we have as a co-joined people in the industry wanting to improve our industry in a big way. Is those guys those guys and gals have got to, we don't have licensing, we don't have these restrictions like plumbers or electricians that you go to their house to measure up and they're like, well, I want to see that you're licensed and insured. They may ask for insurance, but there's no licensing in probably 99% of the US. So due to that, you fall back to it. Certification and training with these new people is imperative. We've talked at length in this podcast about how do you reach them, how do you get them, and I think some good ideas came from it about how to reach out to the retailer, continue to reaching the manufacturer. One thing's for sure, having a lot of people requesting the same thing will get more than one person asking that same thing. So the more we're vocal to the manufacturers and to the fuses and alliances of the world, maybe there's some meaningful change that can happen there from those conversations that this could start.
Well, I think that is the challenge, and I think we all identify very well with the fact that that mentality you were speaking to, where people just don't see the value in training. I've told people for years, and I firmly believe this. You're a commercial installer. Give me 15 minutes. I can show you how to make more money. I really believe
Mhm.
I really believe I can, and I've done it over and over again. So I'm pretty confident in that. That's where training pays for itself. But you gotta have and be able to afford to take the time off and go make the commitment and do all the things that are necessary to make that happen for yourself. And for some, it's too big a hurdle. It's too big
Well,
of
it's an
a
investment. You got to look at it as an investment in
yeah.
time. A lot of people invest their time, like was talked about earlier, with kids sports or a sports team or doing other things. It's really a value thing. Where do you value your professionalism and your ability to be expert at your job or at your service. That is really the whole piece. If you value it enough, you will make time for it. The industry at large, the problem is there's never been a way and to really stamp that somebody is what are their skills and abilities, and homeowners desire it. We did
I
some
heard there was
research.
a program being developed to do that. Are you sure there isn't a way?
There is. Thank you, Rod. But everybody knows about Go Carrera and are soon to be a transition into Trade Tab, where these things are addressed. But that's the only chance. I think that getting the new installers in. I'm just going to do a quick recap. We're running on 2 hours and 20 minutes, but the differences between the entities in the under the WFCA umbrella allows for new people to come in through the WFC or through the FCEF, hopefully get trained by CFI and start to mature in their years of experience and their knowledge through those trainings. So they should be very cohesive, thus the cohesive branding that's required. And none of us are I think we all have to take a step back sometimes and not be so critical and really look at where can I add value and where can I help to make it better, as opposed to where can I find fault and dig it down. That's just an overall statement based on all the questions,
Right.
all the comments and such, that where can we participate to build up the industry as a whole, and not always look at the things that we may see somebody do wrong and tear it down. It's a terrible way to parent. If you just look at your child and you only pick the bad things and you never tell them good job at that last at bat, son, or whatever it is. It's a terrible way to parent, and it's a terrible way to look at an organization that you're trying to grow and make a meaningful change in an industry. Like, let's band together. That type of unity is more important than anything. Band together, and let's find the positive in all these things, and try to really build up this industry together.
Right. So
Go forward, moving
Yeah.
forward too.
So Nate says
You're right.
business skills need to be added to certification since we continue to lose installers to the tax man. And we're
Boom.
about 2.5 hours deep. So I kind of want to lead into some of these questions that we did get, and this kind of like what does success look like for CFI over the next 3 to 5 years, and is there a clear roadmap to get there?
Well, that's a great question. I will tell you that every year we sit down and review the goals for the upcoming year, as well as plan a strategy for the upcoming 3. We don't usually extend out 5 years, though certainly I know some organizations that do.
So what if I reframed it? What is the number one objective for CFI this year? And then what does it look like for the next 3? Is that better than the 3 to 5?
And yeah, but I'm gonna tell you that for me it's a consistent approach. Okay, what does that mean? That means that once we establish our goals, we stay true to them, which means that you don't waver. You don't waver under the criticism of others that may not be well informed. You stay the path. You keep moving forward. So what I'm looking for, and I think we're on the right path, is strong leadership from the group that's sitting in front of you. I think if we possess that and deliver on that level, then the rest of what you're talking about is going to be pretty easy to achieve. Now, if you want a more direct answer, what's the most important thing to me? Most important thing to me is to try and create more value for the membership. It has been for a number of years. It's been the one thing I keep promoting over and over again. If you ask Paul when he's attended on a regular basis, when he's attended, how many times he's heard me preach about value and how important I think it is to deliver value to the membership. Because, guys, this organization We used to say you have to contribute to get something back. I still believe that is somewhat true. But the bottom line is you got to encourage contribution. You got to show them the value in the contribution. And so that for me is the number one goal.
So from an objective standpoint and like actual tangible things, we talked about, trying to make things a little bit easier to sign up, better marketing around how to start a training or host a training. Like some of these things, people just don't know. The effort has to be put in for people to understand how they can host their own training at their location or find a location and do that. There's a lot of positive things that you guys have talked about in here that answer the question Daniel read off, and Daniel stated, that wasn't his question. He can't take credit for it. It's a question from the audience that was emailed in that wants to know, like, what are the actual objectives, and like, how is CFI going to move the ball forward in the industry? And you mentioned some of those with everything. The chapters are one. And I'm just recapping. So I'm not answering this question. I'm just recapping this 2 hours that we've talked about that answers the question. Chapters are one that are an objective that Rollins obviously gotten up to 12. Clarifying how to start and host a training is another. These are the things that came out through this, and if you want to add any more, I just was recapping things you have said that answered that question already.
Well,
really, it comes down to, the value add for membership is always part of our conversation, whether it's the executive board meeting or the entire advisory board. We're always talking about adding value, and we're always talking about how to make it easier to set up trainings. So those are two of our big initiatives. And we've done quite a bit of the flyers and the brochures, trying to get information out to the members to make it easier for them. And if we have not done a good enough job getting that information out to you guys, then we will make sure that is broadcast out so everybody has it. We've worked hard on those things.
Another thing is, just to be clear, is that annually there's an objective of putting on a world-class convention. So that's a big thing to pick up. Just throwing that out there, that
it's not easy.
Part of the answer to that is, like, every year putting on a world-class convention is a big lift. There's a lot to do to make that happen. So that's another objective that you guys, that came out through this is it's every year you got to do it. I mean, it's awesome. So,
well, I think one of our other goals, well, not say other goals, added to the goals, is to give top-notch, first-class trainings and certifications. So keeping our up to date with the new products and the new methods out there, and having the trainers trained to train it properly. That's always on at the top of our list, to make sure that we are the leader in this, and we're going to stay working to be the leader in this. So having you say about the chapters, but our goal is that each chapter area will be set up to be able to be self-contained, to hold the certifications and trainings, to make it easier for the installers. But there again is a value for the installers, that they don't have to travel as far and go as far. So that's stuff we're looking at, is how can we make more areas accessible for trainings? Because there's I hear all the time, well, when are you going to come to my area? When are you going to come to my area? And through chapters and local, we'll be able to do it better. So those are more goals that we have in line to do.
So I think to kind of close this out, it's at 2.5 hours now. Like, for those that want to get more involved in helping CFI, how do they get started? What are the first steps that they need to do in order to start?
I mean, my
Reach
coffee.
out, ask somebody. That's
Yeah,
all it takes.
I
I'm talking about
honestly
reach
feel
out
like
to the
every-
advisory board, call the office.
So you got to say it
Right.
like you're talking to someone who does not know anyone
Right.
or anything.
So the advisory
Right,
board
you're
has
right.
a lot of, hang on, the advisory board has a lot of different committees. There's a marketing committee, a training committee, membership committee. There's like 5 committees. I'm sorry, I'm not coming up with them off the top of my head. We would love to have more volunteers to help with every single one of those committees. So depending on what your passion is, reach out to any one of us. Or I think everybody knows how to get a hold of at least one of us or anybody on the advisory board. And
Well, call CFI
yes,
direct,
CFI
right? I mean,
direct.
first
Call,
thing,
I mean,
call
just in
CFI.
terms of Facebook groups, go on Flooring
Right,
Installers of America and
Rod,
just
give
tag
him,
you,
give
right?
him. Rod's
Yeah,
gonna get.
there is a direct. We set up a direct mailbox for just the advisory board. Okay, so if you want to send us an email, you can send it to the advisory board at cfiinstallers.com. Tell us who you are. Tell us what your interest is. One of us will get on the phone. We'll talk through what you'd like to be involved in, and see if we can't find you a home.
So that's if you are looking to talk to the advisory board. It might be good if you guys post this on your social sites on like how to get a hold of us. But a brand new person that is not, like they're just coming, they maybe got on this podcast and watched some conversation, and they've never been trained. Right. First step, call the home office. Right. Call the home office, say, hey, I want to get certified and I'm in Tuscaloosa, whatever. That's a good way to get started, is it?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. If we know there's somebody out there that's interested in training, we'll work with you to find a spot. Okay.
Yeah, it's them finding you is what I think Daniel was kind of
Yes.
asking. It could have been taken as a 2-part question for people who are already in the industry and kind of know CFI, but also people brand new to the industry, or they've been in the industry for a long time and they never heard of CFI. So in that case, how does that happen, and how does somebody who does know CFI but has an idea or something, then that would be reaching out to the advisory board. And could you mention that email address one more time?
Yeah, it's
Rod?
advisory board at cfiinstaller.com. Okay.
Very good.
I will speak to this as well. Is maybe not one of the priorities, but certainly it contributes to our goals. Is we are trying to enrich some of our relationships with the distributors. Now, how does that play into what Paul was just talking about? I'll give you an example. While we're having the convention in Nashville, every flooring distributor in the area will have a banner announcing we're in town, that we're putting on this. More of that type of marketing is going to be coming your way in the near future. We had a strong network of distributors. Some of that we lost because of all the consolidation in the industry. In some regards, we actually enhanced because a group like All Surfaces gobbled up a lot of smaller entities that we didn't have a relationship with. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on in this industry that the average guy probably doesn't witness, but it's out there, it's going on, and some of that will be to your benefit, and some of it you kind of need to be aware of because you may have to figure out how you're going to approach it in terms of business later on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start to close this out. Want to just
Can we go for another 2 hours?
I mean, if you want to keep on going, I got like
be a record for the longest ever show.
I've got like 20 more
that's the
questions if you want me
record.
to keep on going.
My wife might not
I wanna-
agree with you.
I want to thank everybody for participating and you guys for
Yes.
coming on, answering the questions, being willing to be dug into a little bit, and, you know, giving people a chance to really hear it from you, from CFI, on what's going on. I want to thank all the audience for all the participation. We didn't get to even all of the questions. It just kind of came in droves there. Off and on. So we tried to consolidate some of those. Please jump on, you know, wherever you're consuming this. Give us some love, give us a thumbs up. Let us know what you want on topics coming up. Give us a like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're lacking there and could use your help. So if you watch us on YouTube later and you make it to the 2 hour and 35-minute mark on
We might have to cut this one up, man.
then please like and subscribe it, because you deserve it, and so do we after 2 hours and 35 minutes. So again, thank you, everybody. I want to give a brief moment to each person to kind of give a closing statement. Let's start with you, Rod. You're the next one over.
Well, I'll say this. I think what makes CFI unique is our culture. It's the involvement, the volunteerism. It's having all these people that share their passion on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
How about you, Leslie?
I just want to thank everybody for, you know, as much as seems like there's a lot of negativity out there. Honestly, it's just passion. And I appreciate passion. I think we have one of the most passionate memberships around, and you got to applaud it. It's who we are, and if we didn't love it so much, we wouldn't fight so hard for it.
Philip.
I just want to end by saying we are CFI. If you want trainings, if you want things going on in your area, make it happen. CFI is the members. Anybody can do it. Let's keep moving forward.
Awesome. Roland?
Save me for the last again, huh? All right. First of all, I want to thank everybody that came on and asked questions. You know, it was scary, thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? But the idea that we could come in and try to answer some of them for you. I know we didn't get them all answered, but we're reachable. Most people know how to PM us or get us, or go on the website, go and email the advisory board. But we just want to move forward and make things best for the installers. That's what we are. Thank you for the time. Daniel?
Absolutely. I think that one of the best things that you can do is get to convention and see everyone. A lot of these people, like we talked about Good Old Boys Club, and that it's closed off, but I mean, you guys welcomed us with open arms just in these past few years. So I definitely appreciate everything that you guys do and keep on doing for the industry, and it wouldn't be the same without you. So everyone that joined us today, thank you so much.
You know, it's all about your mother, right?
She'll put anyone in their place.
That's right.
Jose.
She'll also just run you over with the Amigo too. She don't care.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you guys and everyone joining us and trying to shed some light on some of the difficult questions that might have come up early on and throughout this whole episode. But I'm going to leave with more curiosity. I think we should get some board members from the WFCA on here to answer some of those harder questions and to give a little bit of guidance and maybe insight as to why progression doesn't happen faster and why it's so hard for certain divisions of the WFCA to locate additional finances to help push forward. And why we can't come together with manufacturers and distributors to make it more beneficial for installers and to make it more obvious to installers the benefit of being trained and certified.
Well said. I'm going to leave with, I think that this was a really awesome podcast. I enjoyed every minute of it, and I just see a lot of love coming in at the end. And so, regardless, kind of hearkening back to what you said, Leslie, you know, it can be passion, but people love CFI. So keep doing the great work you guys do. Keep driving it forward. I hope this builds a fire in people to get involved and continues to stoke your guys' fire for, building CFI and driving it forward. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to the audience, and we will catch you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul and Daniel,
Thank
for
you.
the time.